My name is Nora Whitaker, and the first thing you should know is that my father did not leave my mother quietly. He left on a Sunday morning while she was making pancakes wearing the gray suit she had ironed for him and holding the hand of his 26-year-old secretary. I was 11 years old, standing in the hallway with syrup on my fingers. He told my mother he deserved a life with less disappointment. Then he looked at me and my little brother Owen like we were two unpaid bills he had finally decided to ignore. He kissed his secretary's temple, walked past our cereal bowls, and drove away in the car my mother had helped him buy. 22 years later, he walked into my bakery headquarters wearing a navy blazer, expensive shoes, and the same smile he used when he abandoned us. He looked around at the offices, the test kitchen, the delivery board, and the framed magazine cover with my face on it. Then he said, "Half of this belongs to me." I thought I had misheard him. My staff froze behind the glass wall. My assistant Grace stepped closer to my office door like she was ready to call security. My father placed a folder on my desk and tapped it twice. "You built this with my family name," he said. "Now it is time you honored where you came from. Before I tell you what was inside that folder and what secret my mother had kept for 22 years, tell me what time it is for you right now and where you are watching from. I want to know how far this story travels, because sometimes the people who disappear from your life return only when your life becomes worth stealing." After my father left, the house changed in ways no child should have to notice. My mother stopped singing in the kitchen. Owen stopped sleeping without the hallway light on. I stopped asking if Dad was coming back, because every time I asked, my mother's face folded in on itself like paper held too close to fire. His secretary's name was Vanessa Lane. I remembered her because she wore red lipstick to the company picnic and told me I had my father's eyes. 3 weeks later, she was living in a condo across town, with him posting photos of brunches, beach, weekends, and a new diamond bracelet, while my mother counted coins for gas. My father was not poor. He owned a small packaging company, then one my mother had helped build from their garage, before Owen and I were born. But after he left, he claimed the business was struggling. He told the court he could barely afford child support. He told relatives my mother was bitter, dramatic, and impossible. The strange thing was, people believed him. They always believe the person who speaks calmly while someone else is bleeding. My mother worked double shifts at a hospital laundry and cleaned offices at night. My father sent checks late, short, or not at all. When my mother complained, he told everyone she was using us as weapons. By 15, I knew the sound of eviction notices sliding under the front door. I knew how to stretch soup with rice. I knew how to lie to teachers about why I could not go on field trips. And I knew that my father's new wife Vanessa had a daughter named Lily who got horseback lessons, private school, and birthday cakes taller than my brother. That was where the misunderstanding began, though. I would not understand it until years later. My father told everyone my mother had taken a generous settlement and wasted it. He said he had left us more than enough. He said if we were struggling, it was because my mother refused to manage money like an adult. I hated him, but part of me hated her too for being so quiet. Children do that sometimes. They blame the parent who stays because the parent who leaves is not close enough to punish. I once shouted at my mother, "Maybe Dad was right. Maybe you did lose everything." She did not defend herself. She just turned away. The next morning she left a cinnamon roll wrapped in foil beside my backpack. No note, no lecture, just food. That was my mother. She loved in quiet, practical ways because life had taught her that big promises were usually made by people already standing near the exit. I ate that cinnamon roll on the bus and cried into my sleeve. I started baking because sugar was cheaper than therapy. At 16, I sold muffins to nurses from my mother's hospital. At 18, I worked dawn shifts at a grocery bakery before community college classes. At 21, I rented a church kitchen at night and sold cinnamon rolls at farmers markets under the name Whitaker Hearth. I chose Whitaker because it was my mother's maiden name, not my father's last name. He was Daniel Mercer, and I wanted nothing of his on my boxes, my invoices, or my future. The first time I stamped Whitaker Hearth on a brown paper bag, my mother touched the logo with one finger and whispered, "That name deserves something good." Owen helped me deliver orders in a used van that smelled like yeast and gasoline. Mom folded pastry boxes at our kitchen table after 12-hour shifts. We were exhausted, broke, and sometimes terrified, but we were building something. Not quickly, not magically. One farmer's market, one catering order, one burned batch, one repaired mixer at a time. By 28, I had a storefront in a renovated mill building in Vermont. By 30, I had 3 locations. By 32, grocery stores carried our frozen pastries. By 33, a national magazine called me the woman who turned cinnamon rolls into a regional empire. I laughed when I saw the headline because empire sounded too clean. Empires are built by people who do not show you the receipts. Mine was built from my mother's ruined knees, Owen's weekends, my cracked hands, and years of waking at 3:40 a.m. while other people slept. Still, I was proud. Not because I had become rich, but because I had become impossible to erase. My mother died in early March, 3 months before my father walked into my office. Cancer took her fast, the way cruel things often arrive late and hurry through the room. In her final weeks, she kept asking me to bring the old blue recipe tin from her closet. I thought she wanted the oatmeal cookie recipe. Instead, she held the tin against her chest and said, "Nora, if your father ever comes near what you built, open the envelope under the false bottom." I thought it was pain medicine talking. I told her not to worry. She squeezed my hand with surprising strength and said, "Promise me you will not believe him first." I promised. Then I put the tin in my avoided it for months, because grief makes ordinary objects tease dangerous. A mug becomes a wound. A sweater becomes a ghost. A recipe card becomes proof that someone's handwriting exists, even when that. So I left the tin untouched beside the flour jars. When my father appeared at Whitaker Hearth headquarters, I had not seen him in 16 years. The last time was at Owen's high school graduation, where he arrived late with Vanessa and Lily, took photos near the entrance and left before Owen crossed the stage. Later he posted online, "Proud father moment." Owen never forgave him. Now Daniel Mercer stood in my office acting like time had been a misunderstanding. His hair was silver, his watch was gold, and his eyes moved around the room like an appraiser's. He did not ask about my mother's funeral. He did not ask how Owen was. He did not say he was sorry for anything. He only opened the folder and slid papers toward me. "I spoke with an attorney," he said. "Whitaker Hearth exists because of seed money from Mercer family assets. Your mother may not have told you that, but legally and morally, I have a claim." He smiled gently, as if theft sounded better in a soft voice. I looked at the papers. There were old bank statements, a copy of my first business registration, and something that made my stomach twist: a handwritten note from my mother to a lender, mentioning family funds used to launch Nora's baking business. My father watched my face carefully. He had waited for that exact flicker of doubt. "This can be handled privately," he said. "I am not trying to embarrass you. I only want what is fair." Grace made a small sound behind me. I looked up and realized 3 employees were pretending not to listen. My father had not come to discuss anything privately. He had come to perform power. I closed the folder. "You need to leave." His smile thinned. "Nora, do not make the same mistake your mother made. She turned you against me because she could not accept reality." That sentence did something strange to me. It did not make me angry first. It made me 11 again, watching him leave with Vanessa. I stood slowly. "Security will walk you out." His eyes sharpened. "Think carefully. You built a wholesome brand on family values. Imagine how customers will react when they learn you cheated your own father." There it was. Not love, not regret, leverage. He had been in my office less than 10 minutes and had already found the knife. After he left, I locked myself in the test kitchen and threw up behind the stainless steel prep table. Grace found me sitting on the floor between sacks of flour, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. She did not ask what happened. She handed me water and said, "Whatever he is doing, we document before we respond." Grace had been with me since the first storefront. She knew the business better than some board members, and knew my panic patterns better than most doctors. She drove me home that evening because I was too numb to trust myself behind the wheel. On the passenger seat, my father's folder felt like a live animal. At home, I stared at my mother's blue recipe tin. It sat on the pantry shelf, innocent and terrible. I lifted it down with both hands. Inside were familiar cards: apple cake, brown bread, lemon icing, holiday rolls. At the bottom was a metal panel I had never noticed. It shifted when I pressed the corner. Underneath was an envelope with my name written in my mother's careful script. My hands started shaking before I opened it. Inside were copies of checks, court filings, company documents, and a letter addressed to me. The first line said, "If Daniel is making claims, it means Vanessa has run out of money." I sat down on the kitchen floor. My mother's letter explained everything she had never said. When my father left, he had hidden business income through Vanessa, then claimed poverty in court. The settlement everyone talked about never existed. Instead, my mother had signed away her shares in Mercer Packaging under pressure, believing it would guarantee child support. But he never paid properly, so my mother sued quietly. Years later, after I had already started selling pastries, a judge ordered back child support and partial repayment for marital business assets Daniel had concealed. My mother used that money to help me rent the church kitchen and buy my first commercial mixer. That was the family money in his folder, not his gift, not his investment. Money he had owed us for years. Money collected after he lied, delayed hid income, and let my mother work herself sick, while Vanessa wore diamonds paid for by the company he claimed was failing. I pressed the papers to my chest and sobbed. The worst part was not that my father lied. I expected that. The worst part was realizing my mother had let me misunderstand her for years rather than burden me with adult ugliness. She let me think she had been weak because protecting me mattered more than defending herself. Even after death, she was still handing me proof. The next morning I met with an attorney named Mara Chen. She had silver-framed glasses, a voice like clean glass, and the calm patience of someone who had seen 1,000 charming men mistake confidence for evidence. She read my father's folder first. Then she read my mother's envelope. By the end, her expression had changed. "Your father is testing whether you scare easily," Mara said. "The documents he showed you are incomplete and he knows it." She tapped the handwritten note. "This is not proof of ownership. It is bait. He wants you emotional enough to negotiate before you understand the paper trail." I asked what he could actually do. "He can file a claim," she said. "He can create reputational damage. He can contact investors, vendors, or media. People like this often combine legal theater with public pressure." I felt cold. "So what do we do?" Mara looked at me. "We make the truth heavier than his performance." For 1 week we said nothing publicly. That silence nearly killed me. My father emailed twice. Then Vanessa emailed. Her message was short and sharp. "Daniel only wants peace. Your mother poisoned you against him. A good daughter would resolve this privately." I stared at good daughter until the words lost shape. Then Lily messaged me. I had not spoken to my stepsister since we were teenagers. She wrote, "Dad is humiliated. You have more than enough." "Why are you being greedy?" I almost replied with every memory I had of watching her receive the childhood my brother and I lost. Instead, I sent everything to Mara. The first public attack came on a Thursday morning. My father posted an old photo of me at 11 standing beside him at a company picnic before he left. His caption said, "A father's love never stops, even when success makes a child forget who helped her rise." It was vague enough to deny, and cruel enough to work. By lunch, comments filled with sympathy. People wrote that children should honor parents. Someone said money changes people. A local gossip page picked it up with the headline, "Bakery founder accused of turning back on father." My company inbox flooded with messages. Some were curious. Some were hateful. One called my mother a liar. That was when Owen drove 3 hours to my house and walked in without knocking. He had my mother's eyes when he was angry. "Tell me we are not letting him do this," he said. Owen had built his own quiet life as a mechanic, far from cameras and business magazines. But Daniel's post had cracked something in him. "We are not letting him do this," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Owen put a cardboard box on my table. "Then you need these." Inside were old birthday cards returned unopened, child support notices, printed emails, photos of our empty refrigerator, and a cassette tape recorder I recognized from my mother's nightstand. She kept everything he said. I thought it was because she couldn't let go. I lifted a stack of notices tied with ribbon. Maybe she knew one day memory would not be enough. Owen nodded. "Dad always counted on us being too ashamed to show people what he did. Mom was ashamed too, but she saved proof anyway." Mara reviewed the new documents and sent my father a formal letter denying his claim, warning him against defamation and requesting that he preserve records. He responded by escalating. That is what men like my father do when a closed door surprises them. They do not walk away. They kick harder and call the noise love. 2 days later, a longtime wholesale client called me sounding uncomfortable. Daniel had contacted them, claiming Whitaker Hearth was under ownership dispute, and that any contracts should be paused until family matters were resolved. Then, a lender forwarded a message from Vanessa, suggesting my company was built with misappropriated funds. Then Lily posted that I had stolen from my own blood. This was no longer about half my business. This was about making me bleed until paying him felt cheaper than defending myself. For one ugly afternoon I considered settling. Not because he deserved anything, but because peace can look tempting when your nervous system is tired. Then I found my mother's final note. It was tucked behind her lemon icing card. It said, "Nora, your father taught me that surrender does not end abuse. It only teaches the abuser where the door is." I read that sentence 3 times. Then I called Mara and said, "File whatever we need to file." My voice did not shake. Mara filed a declaratory action asking the court to affirm that Daniel had no ownership interest in Whitaker Hearth. She also prepared defamation claims based on his statements to clients and lenders. At the same time, Grace and our communications team drafted a public statement, not dramatic, not emotional, boring, factual, and impossible to twist cleanly. Before we released it, Daniel made his biggest mistake. He came to our flagship bakery on a Saturday morning when the line was out the door. He did not come alone. Vanessa came with him wearing sunglasses indoors. Lily followed, filming on her phone. My father raised his voice near the pastry case and said, "Ask your founder why she steals from family." The bakery went silent. Customers held coffee cups halfway to their mouths. My store manager Priya stepped from behind the counter and asked them to leave. Vanessa said, "We have a right to be here. This business exists because of my husband." Lily kept filming. My father looked straight at the customers, like a minister addressing a congregation. "My daughter has forgotten the sacrifices I made," he said. I had been in the back office reviewing production numbers. When Priya called, I walked out wearing a flour-dusted apron, and the kind of calm that only arrives after fear has burned through all its fuel. My father smiled when he saw me. He thought he had trapped me. "Dad," I said loud enough for the room to hear, "are you claiming you invested in this business?" His smile flickered. "I am saying the truth deserves daylight." I nodded. "Good, then let's use daylight." I turned to Lily's phone. "Please keep recording. Your father's attorney will want an accurate copy." Vanessa's face tightened. My father stepped closer. "Do not threaten me." "I am not threatening you," I said. "I am asking you to be specific in front of witnesses. Did you invest money in Whitaker Hearth? Did you sign any ownership agreement? Did you provide any loan, gift, equipment, property, or service to this company?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence was delicious and awful. Customers began looking from him to me. Lily lowered her phone slightly. Vanessa snapped. "This is not how family talks." I looked at her. "You were in my father's car the morning he left 2 hungry children behind. Please do not lecture me about family." A sound moved through the bakery. Not a gasp exactly, more like people rearranging what they thought they were seeing. My father's face went red. "Your mother made me leave." There it was, the oldest lie polished from years of use. I looked at him and finally said what my mother never had the strength to say publicly. "No, Daniel. You left because you wanted Vanessa and did not want consequences." His eyes flashed at his first name. "You will regret this." I leaned forward slightly. "I regretted trusting you when I was 11. I regretted doubting Mom when I was 15. I regretted answering your email last week. I will not regret telling the truth." Priya called security. Vanessa tried to grab a stack of brochures from the counter, maybe to throw them, maybe to make a scene. Grace stepped between us and said, "Everything here is recorded." That sentence changed the air. My father looked up and noticed the ceiling cameras. Lily stopped filming. They left without buying a single pastry. Within an hour, Lily's partial video was online. She had posted only the beginning where my father accused me and I looked cold. But customers posted their own videos. Full videos. Videos where he could not answer whether he had invested. Videos where Vanessa told my employees she had a right to my business. Videos where I named the morning he left. The internet did what the internet does. It judged too fast, then reversed too fast. Comments shifted from "honor your father" to "why can't he answer the question?" Someone found old public records about his child support case. Someone else found a bankruptcy filing connected to Vanessa's boutique. Then a former Mercer packaging employee commented Daniel has been hiding money for decades. That comment changed everything. Mara saw it and hired an investigator. Within days, we learned that Mercer Packaging had collapsed the previous year after Daniel guaranteed loans for Vanessa's failed luxury event business. They owed creditors. Their house had a second mortgage. Lily's influencer lifestyle was funded by debt. My father did not want half my business because of pride. He wanted half because he was drowning. The next week, Daniel filed his claim anyway. It was thin, theatrical, and full of language about family legacy. He argued that my mother's use of recovered marital funds made him an indirect contributor to Whitaker Hearth. Mara laughed once when she read it, then apologized for laughing. I have seen birthday cards with stronger legal arguments, she said. Still, lawsuits are not harmless just because they are weak, reporters called. Vendors asked questions. Employees worried. I held a staff meeting in the production kitchen because that was where we had always told the truth. I explained the claim, the evidence, and the plan. My voice cracked once when I mentioned my mother. Nobody looked away. At the end, Priya raised her hand and said, "So basically the man who did not pay child support wants back pay for abandoning you." The room laughed, and the laugh saved me. Not because it was funny, but because it reminded me that his story only worked in rooms where nobody knew us. The court hearing was scheduled for late September. Before that, we entered mediation. My father arrived with Vanessa, Lily, and a lawyer who looked like he had already realized his client was a problem. I arrived with Mara Grace Owen and a folder my mother had built over 22 years without ever knowing this day would come. Daniel tried charm first. "Nora, this has gone too far. I never wanted court. I wanted acknowledgement." I looked at him across the polished table. He looked older under fluorescent lights. Not humble. Just reduced. Acknowledgement of what I asked. He sighed. That I am your father, that my name opened doors. I almost smiled. Your name closed doors. Mom opened the first one. I built the rest. Vanessa made a sharp noise. Your mother loved playing martyr. Owen stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. Mara touched his sleeve. Sit, she murmured. He sat, but his hands shook with 22 years of swallowed rage. Mara began laying out documents. Court orders for unpaid support. Records of concealed income. Bank transfers from Mercer Packaging to Vanessa Lane before the divorce. The judgment my mother collected years later. Receipts for my first mixer, my church kitchen rental, my business license, all paid after Daniel's debt to his children was partially enforced. Then Mara placed one final document on the table. It was a notarized statement from a retired bookkeeper at Mercer Packaging. She had worked there when my parents were married. According to her, my mother had owned 40% of the original company through sweat equity bookkeeping client relations and signed formation documents Daniel later claimed were clerical errors. My father stared at the statement. Vanessa whispered. Daniel Lily looked confused for the first time, truly confused like a child, realizing the family story had missing pages. My father's lawyer asked for a break. Mara said calmly, "We are happy to continue after your client has had a moment with reality." In the hallway, Owen leaned against the wall and covered his face. I thought he was crying, then I realized he was laughing silently. Mom owned part of his company, he said. He spent our whole lives acting like she was some helpless dependent, and she helped build the thing. I nodded. My throat hurt too much to answer. When mediation resumed, Daniel's tone had changed. Fine, he said. Maybe mistakes were made. That phrase. Mistakes were made. As if cruelty had happened in the weather. As if checks wrote themselves short. As if he tripped and fell into Vanessa's arms for 22 years. I looked at him and felt the last fragile thread snap. Mistakes were not made, I said. You made choices. You left. You lied about money. You let Mom carry shame that belonged to you. You let your daughter think her mother had failed her. Then you came back when you needed rescue and called it fairness. Daniel looked away. For once he did not interrupt. Vanessa did. We are the ones losing everything now. I turned to her. No. You are losing what you funded with denial. Lily's face crumpled. Maybe because she finally understood that the luxury she grew up inside had not appeared from nowhere. Maybe because people like her are innocent and guilty in complicated amounts. I did not comfort her. Mara presented our terms. Daniel would withdraw his claim with prejudice. He would issue written corrections to clients, lenders, and the public statement he had made online. He would stop contacting Whitaker Hearth, its employees, vendors, and investors. He would acknowledge in writing that he had no legal or financial interest in the business. He refused at first. He said it was humiliating. I almost laughed. Humiliation to him was correcting a lie. To my mother, humiliation had been choosing which bill to ignore while his new family vacationed at the coast. To me, humiliation had been pretending I was not hungry so Owen could eat more pasta. Humiliation will not kill you, I said. Mom survived yours for years. His lawyer whispered to him. Vanessa whispered harder. Lily cried quietly. Daniel stared at the agreement like it was a punishment invented just for him. Then he picked up the pen and signed. His signature looked smaller than I remembered. But the true twist came after mediation in the parking garage. Lily followed me to my car. Owen stepped in front of me, but I shook my head. Lily's makeup was streaked and her hands were empty. No phone. No performance. I didn't know, she said. I waited. People often say that when they mean, please make this easier. She swallowed. I knew your dad left your mom for my mom. I knew that part. But I didn't know about the money. I didn't know he owed you support. I thought your mother hated us and kept you away. Her voice cracked. That's what they told me. I believed her and did not forgive her. Both things can exist. Lily, I said you were a child then, but you are not a child now. What you do with the truth is yours. She nodded and wiped her face. He asked me to post things about you. Mom too. They said it would pressure you into settling. I closed my eyes. Do you have proof? She looked ashamed. Yes. That proof became the final lock on the door. Lily sent messages showing Daniel and Vanessa had planned the public posts, client calls, and bakery confrontation to damage my reputation before court. Mara added it to our file. Daniel's written correction became stronger. Vanessa had to sign one too. Lily deleted her posts and published a plain apology. The apology did not make us sisters. It did not repair childhood. It did not bring my mother back, but it cracked the painted wall my father had hidden behind for decades. Former employees began speaking. Old relatives admitted they had suspected things. My mother's sister mailed me a letter saying, "Your mother was never weak. She was outnumbered." I kept that letter beside the blue recipe tin. Not because it fixed the years I spent misunderstanding my mother, but because healing sometimes arrives as a sentence you needed 20 years ago. Your mother was never weak. I said it out loud in my kitchen, until I could hear it without crying. Daniel withdrew his lawsuit. Publicly, he wrote that he had no ownership claim to Whitaker Hearth, had not invested in the company, and regretted statements that suggested otherwise. It was not an apology. Men like my father often confess only to the smallest room they are trapped in. Still, it was signed, it was dated, it was useful. The fallout was not cinematic. No one got dragged away in handcuffs. No mansion exploded. Vanessa's event business closed quietly. Daniel sold his house to satisfy creditors. Lily disappeared from social media for a while. My father sent one personal email after everything ended. The subject line was, "Enough." The body was 3 sentences. "You have made your point. I hope destroying your father was worth it. Your mother would be ashamed of what you became." I read it once. Then I printed it, placed it in a folder labeled Evidence, and blocked his address. Not because I needed to keep suffering, but because I never again wanted nostalgia to edit the truth. A month later, I drove to the cemetery with the blue recipe tin. My mother's grave was under a maple tree. Simple and still too new. I sat in the grass and told her everything. The lawsuit. The bookkeeper, Lily. The signed correction. Owen fixing up an old truck in her honor. The cinnamon roll we renamed after her. I told her I was sorry for ever believing Dad's version of anything. Of course the dead do not answer. But wind moved through the maple leaves, and for one foolish second I imagined her in the kitchen again, wiping her hands on a towel, pretending not to cry because there was work to do. Whitaker Hearth survived. More than survived, actually. Customers came back with stories. Women told me about fathers who returned for money. Men told me about mothers who had carried families silently. Employees brought their own old wounds into the open. We did not become a revenge brand. We remained a bakery. But something honest settled into the walls. Owen and I created a small emergency fund for employees leaving unsafe homes. We named it the Elise Whitaker Fund after Mom. The first time we approved a grant for a young dishwasher who needed a deposit on an apartment, I went to my office, closed the door, and cried until Grace knocked with coffee. On the anniversary of Mom's death, I baked her cinnamon rolls alone before sunrise. Same card, same measurements, same note in the margin. Do not rush the second rise. That line felt like advice for bread and daughters. Some lives need longer to rise, because someone kept punching the air out of them. People ask if I hate my father. The honest answer is that hate takes more daily energy than he deserves. I remember him. I document him. I protect myself from him. But I do not organize my life around proving he was wrong anymore. The business he wanted half of became proof of something better. It proved my mother was not the abandoned woman he described. She was the foundation. It proved that unpaid debts do not become gifts just because a selfish man says family. It proved that a child can inherit pain, misunderstand it, survive it, and still build something warm enough to feed other people. The last time Daniel tried to reach me, he sent a letter through a cousin. I did not open it. I returned it with one sentence written on the envelope: "No claim remains." That was true legally. It was also true spiritually. He had no claim on my company, my grief, my mother's memory, or the little girl in the hallway. So here's what I learned. When someone abandons you, lets you suffer, rewrites the story, and returns only when your life has value, they are not coming back as family. They are coming back as a creditor of a debt you never owed. And sometimes the strongest revenge is making them prove their claim in front of the truth. If a father leaves his children hungry, then appears 22 years later, demanding half of the business his abandoned daughter built, he should not be surprised when the daughter opens the old tin, reads the hidden papers, and finally, understands that the inheritance he left behind was not love. It was evidence.